Hi guys, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. This hobby channel revolves around Japanese-made and occasionally Chinese-made makeup brushes. Hope you find my content helpful and can stick around and subscribe. This is another highly requested video, and it's been a long time since I've done an eyeshadow favorites video. These are my current favorites. Some of them are old favorites that haven't changed over the years, while some are new. I try a lot of brushes, but I'm also a creature of habit, so it takes a lot to get into my favorites. They basically have to be outstanding to make it there. I'll start with lid shaders. I have 6 of them. This is the Rephr 2. It's the best MAC 239 dupe out there. It has completely replaced my MAC 239. I got a new 2 after my Rephr favorites video, and this one is softer without any blunt hair tips. It grabs matte, shimmer, and metallic formulas effortlessly and applies vibrantly. It's denser than the MAC 239 and applies heavier as well. I love to use it for the inner half of the lid. Next is the Koyomo Nadashko Pinkpro flat shadow brush for applying color to the inner half of the lid. It's amazing for grabbing emollient metallic color pop shadows and applying them vibrantly. It doesn't shear out the color and also maintains the metallic shimmers. It's a little large for the inner portion of my lid, but I overlook it for how gorgeously it applies these types of shades. I have a backup of it too. Next is the Rephr 16. It's the dupe of the Hakuhodo J5522. I didn't like the J5522 before, but I think my tastes have changed over time, and this brush is a bit different in terms of hair quality. It's excellent for applying soft to medium pressed base shades to the lids. It shows up pigmented since goat brushes give a heavier finish than squirrel. It blends the edges well without needing to go back with the blending brush. I really like it, but wish it was a bit softer for my sensitive skin. I think it's a better blender than the J5522 I had before because the hairs are coarser on this brush. It does make me want to buy the J5522 again. Here's the T6 on the left. It's a large round tapered brush I love to use for all over lid shading. It has an oval ferrule. Mine has a slightly tapered tip, which gives the precision I need for my smaller lid spaces, but I've seen it bundled without the tapered tip and it's just round on the top. The stock image shows it with the tapered tip as well. It does seem like Chikohodo's bundling has changed for their Takumi series over the years. One of the most recent T5s I played with looked nothing like the stock image, and the first one I got years ago too. Depending on the eyeshadow, it either applies lid color smoothly or requires some work to blend out. I have found that it applies smoothly with some ColourPop matte shadows and a Kaja shimmer shade, but has a harder time with some other ColourPop matte shadows. For the shadows that are easy to smooth onto the lid, it applies pigmented and evenly. For the shadows that aren't easy to work with, the color is deposited in the first area you place it and it doesn't blend well. I end up doing a lot of windshield wiper motions and it tugs at my skin, which isn't good at all. It didn't bother me when I was younger, and I didn't have a problem with blending vigorously on the lids back then, but now that I'm getting older, I'm more careful with the skin on the delicate eye area. Basically, you need to figure out which shadows work well with this brush to maximize the performance. The smooth and well-formulated shadows will allow you to put in the least amount of effort during application. Despite the con, I still love it and recommend it, especially if you're young and don't have any issues with tugging. Next is the Koyumo BP30. It's a dense angled pine scroll brush. I love it for eyeshadow laydown. It's soft and smooth and applies evenly and pigmented. It's discontinued now, but Koyumo recently released a new H series with a similar brush. Hopefully they bring it to CD Japan soon. The last shader I have is the Shosholong F05 Flat Tamago shader. It's made out of exquisitely soft tamago hairs. It's a flat shader with a rounded tip. It works nicely for matte all over lid shading with soft press formulas. If the formula is medium to firm, it'll have a harder time picking up and applying well because the hairs are so soft. It feels super soft when swept across the lids and doesn't tug at the skin. I just sweep it across like this. It applies matte shades vibrantly and blends to a good extent. I wish it were larger for all over lid shading because it's too big for the inner half of my lids and a little small for placing color all over the lids. So I'll compare it to like the BP30. The Koyomo BP30 is on the right. It's a little bit bigger, and then here it is compared with the Rephr 16 on the right. It's bigger. And then here it is compared with the T6. If it were larger, it'd be a holy grail brush for me. The Rephr 16 and Shosholong F05 could have things that could be better about them, but I liked them enough to include them in this list. Moving on to crease and outer V brushes. The Shosholong F05 is a round Tamago crease brush. It's round shaped, but the sides of the brush are flat since it doesn't want to maintain the round shape. I love it for matte crease color. It performs really well with basically any matte shadow I use it with. It applies vibrantly and blends well. I don't need an extra brush to blend out harsh edges. It blends itself during application. It's an amazing brush. You can see that there was some shadow residue left on it, and yeah, it applied pretty pigmented. This is after I wiped it off the towel too. Next is the Chikoho Z11. It's a round gray scroll blending brush. It's excellent for blending and applying crease color. I have been using it more for blending lately and prefer it for that. The head is a bit large for my lid, so it's more for all over blending after I've applied lid color. It does a better job at blending than the Zuvmor Black Onyx No. 7. The Zuvmor is on the right. For crease color, I prefer to use it with brighter and darker shades since it applies lightly. I used it with a medium brown shade from the ColourPop Sandstone palette. It applies excellently and gives the outer corner area the V shape with little effort. It maintains the shimmers of the shades as well. Also, the formula in this palette is amazing, I love it. Here we have the Koyomo Nadeshko Pinkpro Shadow Brush. It reigns supreme after all these years. It's my holy grail brush for the crease. It has a round ferrule with a taper tip and super soft hairs. It also depends on the bundling. I do have another one that's not as tapered as this one. It grabs and deposits matte shades beautifully. I have a backup as well. I don't think I need to say much about this brush since it's a favorite and I've already raved about it in previous videos. Here are the Fude Japan S and M. The S is on the left and the M is on the right. The S is nice for the outer V area. You can build up the dark color smoothly. The M is a wonderful brush for building up crease color. It's super soft and it applies evenly. The edges aren't imprecise and I don't even need to blend them, especially if I'm in a rush. Next up are blending brushes. I like to use brushes with round ferrules and mostly tapered heads to blend. The Mizuho CMP527 is a longtime holy grail blending brush for me. It's a mix of pony and gray skull hair. It has a tapered tip, and I recently bought a backup as well. It blends in the middle of the spectrum between no blending and over blending. It's basically the Goldilocks just right brush for blending for me. It doesn't require that many windshield wiper motions to blend, but it also doesn't overblend easily. I really don't like it when eyeshadow blending brushes overblend easily because it ends up making things muddy or shears out the color too much. Also, the least amount of windshield wiper motions I need to do now, the better, since I don't want to cause any premature wrinkles. I talked about this brush in older videos like the Mizuho Brand Series video and the Chikoho Z11 review video, so if you're interested in seeing more about this and some other blending brushes, feel free to check those videos out. Here's the Hakuhodo J146. It's a small tapered blending brush. It's great for small lids and precision blending. It does a good job at blending in small areas without shearing out or overblending the colors. I love it so much. This is the Hakoto B142, which is also known as the J142. It's a round or tapered blending brush. Depending on the bundling and density level of the brush that you get, it may overblend easily or blend to a medium extent. My first J142 on the right was dense with a rounded top part, so it overblended easily. You can see that the new one on the left is tapered while the old one on the right is rounded on the top. The old one that I have is pretty much the heaviest blender out of all my blending brushes. My new one has the thinner body with the tapered tip, which doesn't overblend and allows me to focus the blending. The blending is much softer with my newer one since it's also way less dense. I grew out of love for my first one since it had the tendency to make my shadows look muddy, but rekindled my love for this brush once I got a new one. Sometimes bundling and density levels make a huge difference. Here are the Hakuhodo S142 BK on the left and the Weingos 4 on the right. These are both tapered blending brushes made out of gray scroll. They have soft to medium blending power. You can blend it up to medium strength even though they're made out of gray scroll. So here's the Hakuhodo. And the Weingos 4. Hakuhodo on the left, Weingos on the right. Last blending brush I have is the synthetic NYX blending brush number 16. It's a synthetic treasure. It has a round ferrule with a round head and top. Rounded on the top, round all the way around. It blends a little softer than goat brushes, but it's a great blender overall. It doesn't overblend or shear out the color. This and the J142 are both great for blending quickly if you're in a rush. Next are the brown bone highlight brushes. I'm not particular with brown bone brushes, so I'm still using my e.l.f. eyeshadow brush since forever ago. Mine is so old that it's made out of natural hair. I think it's horse or goat. They're made out of synthetic hairs now. It has a wide, flat head with a pinched oval ferrule. It gets the job done quickly and easily. The head is firm and dense, so it picks up color with a strong grip and deposits it perfectly underneath the brows. The Hakoto J532 is another brush I use for that area. It's a large goat flat paddle brush. It also has a wide head, short hairs, and a firm head. It is more flexible than the Wet n Wild brush because the hairs are longer. The Wet n Wild one on the right has shorter hairs, so it's a lot more inflexible. The Hakuhodo is a little big for my brow bone area, but it's soft and applies nicely too. For the eyebrows, I typically use either a powder or dip brow. I love using synthetic brushes for the brows. I use the Real Techniques brow brush, eyeliner brush, and Wet n Wild angled eyeliner brush. I particularly like using smaller brushes for the brows so I get more use out of the two smaller ones. So you can see how dirty the Wet n Wild one is because I was using it with dip brow. Here's the Real Techniques brow brush. This is old. I'm not sure if they still sell this in a set anymore. And then this is the Real Techniques eyeliner brush. And here's the Wet n Wild angled eyeliner brush. Yeah, sorry, it's dirty. This is the Weingos 21, which is equivalent to the Hakoto B5549 brow brush. It's made out of water badger and has a pinched flat ferrule. It has a wide head with short hairs and a firm body. It's super firm and is the firmest brush out of all the eyebrow brushes that I use. I don't really use this one as much as the other synthetic ones. With the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow, I do have to be very careful with it as it will grab a ton of product if I'm not careful. If the dip brow is new, you barely need any product at all to fill in the brows. The brush will easily apply in a large surface area if you're not careful. I also use this with a brow powder and it applies more naturally and better than the dip brow, but I still need to be careful to not apply too outside of the brow lines. So it does have the tendency to apply outside of your eyebrow lines, like where your natural eyebrow shape is, so it is a nice brush, you just have to be very careful with it. To throw some more synthetics into the mix, I also love the old Real Techniques synthetic brushes for traveling and the ColourPop E1. They are solid performers and I'm able to quickly put together an eye look with them. These Real Techniques brushes are old and I'm not sure if they sell them anymore, but if you're able to find them and if you don't have sensitive skin, then I do recommend them. My skin is even more sensitive now than it was in the past. So in the past, I didn't really have any problems using these, like scratching my eyelids or anything, but now they're more sensitive, so I do feel like they're kind of scratchy. It all just depends on your sensitivity level. This is the shading brush, and I have two of these right here, and then I have the base shadow brush, which is great. Next is the domed shadow brush, followed by the Deluxe crease brush. My favorites are definitely the shading brush and the base shadow brush. I'll show you the heads really quick. This is the shading brush. It's dense and short. And then the base shadow brush, which is the shape of the J5523. And the domed shadow brush. It's pretty dense and thick. Oh yeah, I didn't show you the side. Here's the side of the base shadow brush compared to the dome shadow brush. Here's the Deluxe crease brush. It's round. The ColourPop E1 is the shape of the MAC 217 and Hakuhodo J5523. It's soft and actually applies the ColourPop formulas that have tiny shimmers in them. I'm referring to the matte shades that have shimmer dispersed throughout them, so something like this one, this Recharge shade, and Blaze. They're matte, but they have a ton of shimmers inside. I usually really dislike those shades because the shimmers don't translate onto the eyes. They actually get all over the face during application. This baby was made for those shadows. It blends smoothly and is an awesome brush overall. Here it is compared with the Real Techniques base shadow brush. So similar shapes. The hairs on the Real Techniques brush are longer. And the Real Techniques brush is more fluffy. The next couple brushes are nice to have but not holy grails or brushes that I absolutely need to do my makeup with. I'll just go over them quickly. This is the Hakuhodo G5523. This is the scroll version of the J5523. It's a softer blender than the goat version. I love that it doesn't fluff up much at all due to the scroll hairs and provides soft focus blending. I can get into the smaller areas and blend with the tips. I typically blend like this with it. Here's the Hakuhodo G5522. It's a lovely brush for all over lid color. It grabs and applies soft pressed shadows nicely. I don't need to go back in with the blending brush to diffuse or blend out the edges. It's a mix of gray scroll and goat and is soft on the skin. The Shosholong LL05 is a round, slightly tapered brush. It applies all over lid shade well, but not as smoothly as some brushes like the T6. It does require some more back and forth work compared to the T6. I already talked about the three on the left in my Zuvmore brush review video, so take a look at that if you're interested. Let's start with the Zuvmore Black Onyx Round Blending Brush number 7 on the left. This is a round blending brush with medium density. It's very soft. These are made of Saibikoho hairs as well. Then we have the Zuvmore Black Onyx number 10. I also like to use this for blending. Next is the Zuvmore Black Onyx number 12. It's a small flat shader and it's great. This is the Shosholong F09. It's a small pencil brush and it's great for applying ColourPop Super Shock shadows to the inner corners. Here's the Chikoho GSN9. It's a small gray scroll flat shadow brush. It applies crease color well, but the brush is a little small. It applies the inner half of the lid shade well and it maintains the shimmers. This is the Weingos 16, which is equivalent to the Hakoto B142. It's a round goat brush. Super dense. I typically use this for lid shading. It does apply the color softly, but since it's so dense and firm, it will tug on your skin when you move back and forth. Lastly, the Chikoho PS4 is a wonderful brush for shimmers and metallic shades. It's got a pinched oval ferrule and it's tapered at the top. This is made out of dyed Sokoho, and it might be a little prickly or scratchy for those of you with extremely sensitive skin, but I think for the most part, most people would be able to use this without any issues. I like it and I don't feel that it's scratchy or prickly on my skin on good skin days. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in my next video. Bye bye!